But so my three younger sisters and I, we were allowed to watch 2 shows during the week. During the school days, Little House on the Prairie, that was the show we were allowed to watch. And on Sunday nights, The Wonderful World of Disney. And I always loved Disney. I remember one of my favorite Disney movies of the day when I was a kid was The Sword and the Stone. And I remember Sebastian Cabot, who played Mr. French on Family Affair. He was the narrator. But I loved Disney, and for everybody here and everybody in the world, it's always been so much more than a theme park and a movie studio. There's something magic about Disney. And I always argue that if you're going to make a religion based on science fiction, how about Disneyology? I would go to the Church of Disneyology. The other ones, I'm not so sure about. When I auditioned for Kronk, I only got a few pages because Disney is very secretive about their scripts. They don't just give you a script. So there was a Kronk and an Yzma, and since it's a cartoon, I wasn't really sure what a Kronk was. He could have been an ogre or a monster or a robot. I sensed that he was a henchman, and it seemed to be something of a reticent henchman. So you have to invent, as a voiceover artist, you have to invent a voice because they can write character descriptions of 4 pages of a character description, but they still don't know what the character sounds like until you show them what it sounds like. And so I thought, well, he probably doesn't sound dark like this, because he liked to cook, so I just sort of brought him down here like that. It made him a little bit, more campy, I guess. And they liked it. They're like, that's it. And all of a sudden, I couldn't believe I was working on a Disney film. That was not the first time I worked with Eartha Kitt, by the way. That's a story a lot of folks don't know. 10 years before we did that movie, I did some horrible movies in South Africa with Eartha Kitt. Oh, they're terrible. These movies are so bad, they're cult bad. And I am the worst thing in them, and that is the truth. They took place in the 16th century, islands colonized by the Brits. And I remember talking to the producers, I said, well, I should work on a dialect, right? They said, don't worry about it. They had no intentions of these being good movies. They were sort of exploitation films. So I was sold into the slave trade because they said that I was a trader in the colonies. So as I was 22 years old and I had road crew, so I was in pretty decent shape at the time. And I just stood up there on the auction block as all the women with their parasols would say to their husband, I want that one. And then it's it's a little raunchy. But Eartha Kitt ran the bordello. And of course, as I was hiding, the best place to hide was the bordello, I guess. And so this is just a funny story with Eartha Kitt. Now, I was 22. We always, by the way, Oliver Reed was in the films, and he was great, even though he was drinking every day on set. Well, that's Reed for you. He tried to get me drinking whiskey at 10 o'clock in the morning. I said, just give me until this evening, I'll join you. I'm gonna ruin myself with bad acting. I don't need to be drunk and a bad actor. So, we did these films, and Eartha Kitt was performing in Los Angeles at the Roosevelt Hotel. And I thought, well, I did a couple movies with Eartha, I'll go visit her and watch her performance. So I went to go watch it, and she was delighted that I came. Now, keep in mind still, I'm 22 years old. So after she did it, and Eartha's, she was like what you would call the dragon lady, the grand, I don't know.
Vizier.
Was it?
Vizier.
That. So she said, darling, I'm so glad you're here. Why don't you come up to my room? Okay. So I went up there, and she had like a butler, and she was sitting on one end of the couch, and she was petting an animal, and I'm not sure what it was to this day. It was entirely covered with fur. She was just petting it. She said, darling, it's so good that you're here. How have you been? And it got so strange and uncomfortable after about 10 minutes. I excused myself. She already kicked the butler out. She did not come on to me. All I can tell you is that as a 22-year-old man, I just felt so out of my league here and uncomfortable. And I scooched off. And it's so strange because 10 years later you look at Kronk and Yzma and it's almost the exact same relationship. But the universe has a way of bringing people back together again in very similar situations. But I've been going on. Let's open.
Yeah, next question.
You've had a lot of really, quite a variety of characters over your career. What would you say is the best one you've played up to now?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I have favorites, and there are those that have favorites. You know, I've done some fun things, some weird things, you know, in the realm of cartoons, there are, you know, the Venture Brothers fans, and you know, the Disney fans, the Kronk fans. You know, I never said spoon once in that series, but that is his call sign. My favorite line was, you know, the tick in that first episode when he throws a fortune cookie in his mouth and he discovers that there is a secret message from my teeth. I just thought that was great. I love this guy. When he picked up the little cocktail umbrella and he said, "Oh, I'd love to find the tiny fella who this came from." Anybody whose mind works like that, it's just, it's too much fun. So, but I've just had so many great opportunities, and so many of them have come from Barry Sonnenfeld. Barry Sonnenfeld directed The Tick and hired me for that. We did Big Trouble together, we did Men in Black 2 together, and we did a series of unfortunate events together. I asked you that you watch something more pleasant, really. That was a great opportunity. That looked great. Bo Welch did all the sets. He does all the sets for Tim Burton's movies, and he does all the sets for Barry's movies. He did all the sets for the Men in Black movies. So it was a great team to work with. I did a film in Australia years ago with Sam Neill called The Dish about the Apollo 11 mission, which was a great experience and one of my favorite films I've ever worked on. I did who here has seen The Woman Chaser by chance? Yes, it's an old black and white, it's film noir style picture. If you get a chance, check that out. It's really weird, and I liked it. A lot of folks in the industry seem to dig that one. I have long, stupid answers for questions. I always realize at the end, too, I didn't actually answer your question. I have a lot of favorites, though, so I can't really just, you know, one thing. Say hi to your mom for me. Give her my best, give her a hug.
All right, next question.
Well, first of all, squeaky, squeak, squeak.
Yeah, you gotta be well versed in all the woodland creatures, not just the squirrels.
And my question is, what is your favorite line to say as Kronk?
Spinach puffs. The poison for Cusco. Cusco's poison, bad poison. Put your hands in the air. There's a wall there.
All right, next question. What's up, Matt?
Okay, this is kind of obscure, so please forgive me. In the series Rules of Engagement, the ghost story episode, Jeff Bingham is woke up by Audrey, and she talks about a dream, and he says, "Is that the one where I was with Lee Majors in the forest hunting Sasquatch?" A direct reference to one of the episodes of the Venture Brothers. So my question is, was that something you ad-libbed just to have fun, or are the writers of the show like really big fans, and the three of you got together and added that too?
Well, I have no idea how that came together, because I just know that I didn't have any part in that. So, and that was probably, I mean, we haven't done, well, that was an early episode of the Venture Brothers, so that would have been around the same time, I guess, that we were doing Rules of Engagement. None of the writers on Rules were on Venture Brothers, so I don't know how that came about. Sorry.
No Venn diagram connection there, Matt.
No.
Deep cut, though. Deep
Yeah.
cut.
Yes.
What's up, Matt? What's your question?
What's your favorite Family Guy episode?
I like the one. I had fun with the one where Meg had a crush on Joe. It was very it was just so gross. But I got to record with Mila. They actually had. Normally we record by ourselves, but they said we're going to have you and Mila record together. So it's always lovely to get to work with the lovely Mila Kunis.
All right, next question.
So, I'll try to speak clearly around the T so you can understand me. My dad and I quote Crunk back and forth on a daily basis. Like, both of The Emperor's New Groove and Crunk's New Groove are like our favorite movies to just quote. And I was wondering, did any of like those lines or even like those screams, I have to wonder like, what kind of work you've done with like improv, because some of them sound just too good to be planned out.
Well, thank you. Listen, that's part of the way I think you have to attack these things and make everything seem like it's happening in the moment and whatnot. So sometimes things seem improvised when they're not. They're pretty solidly written. I don't recall us doing too much improvising. But it is when you come in, it is your responsibility to bring characters to life, and sometimes that's tricky to do in an isolated VO booth when you're just there by yourself and you gotta go a little wacky, so knock a few coffees back and fuel up, but you gotta try to make it like as organic as you can. And so what I always tell anybody doing voiceover work, it was a big lesson for me, in regards to acting too, is that they don't know what they're looking for sometimes till they see it. And I remember in the early days, I was always trying to figure out what was the right way to do something. And the aha moment for me was that there isn't a right way. There's a creative way, there's your way. And it doesn't mean you don't take direction, but you gotta bring some creativity to it, no matter what it is. Create and play around. Because you can't fail. There's like, well, this will work and that won't, and you can tailor things, but yeah, you want to be creative. So, and that probably is what makes things look like they're improvised when they're not. Because there's great writers. It's one of the great things when you work on a Disney film and working in animation as opposed to live action. The one thing I appreciate is that it is a concerted effort of so many artists. So it doesn't take that long to do the voiceover work, and then at the end of the day, or in the case of making a Disney animated picture, years at times, you get to see the whole thing come together, and everybody's, what everybody contributed, and all the artists, and that's a fun thing.
All right, guys, just a reminder, we're going to do our best to get through all of your questions while we're here, but if you don't, as soon as we wrap up, Patrick's heading back to his booth, so if you guys still wanted to get autographs or pictures, he'll be available to do that once we wrap up here. What's your question, man?
Rowing term, 6E. My question is, do you still have the 8-ball jacket from Seinfeld?
I don't. I was, well, I inquired. I said, can I get that from Wardrobe? And they said, sure, it's $1,000. And then I'm not going to pay $1,000 for a coat I will never wear again. That will someday on eBay, 30 years from now, be worth $1,500. I'm not going to pay $1,000. So I never got it. But they are making ridiculous 8-ball jackets, and I've seen a few here today. I've seen some great stuff here today. There is we gotta get him at some point. Is he here? There he is. My alter ego. Look at this guy.
Hi, man. Good to see you, brother.
The weird thing is, he looks exactly like Rob Riggle, but he sounds like me. I don't know what to make of this guy. That's fantastic. Next question.
Okay.
first off, I want to say I am a huge fan of your movies, and so my question is, do you have any word of advice for people who want to get into acting?
Theater, theater, and go to acting workshops and do theater. But theater was the best thing for me. Going in for network readings and auditions, would just make me crazy in the day. But the more experience you have getting up on stage and doing a show, then all of a sudden it becomes a little less daunting, a little less scary. So, but there's nothing more pure than theater, and when you're used to doing that, it makes everything a little bit easier. But it's the best experience, yeah. Sure.
All right, next question.
Okay, this is going to be a bit more personal, like regarding your faith and all that. And forgive me if I might be mincing information. It's been a while since I've seen this interview. So, from what I've seen, you were doing an interview, and you were asked about Family Guy and certain episodes where you just felt like you just couldn't do it. You couldn't do it because you felt like it was too sacrilegious and whatnot. So, this is why I have to go ask. Were there any projects that you, were there any other projects that you just felt like you just couldn't do because you felt like it was too far against your faith?
No. There was one episode, and I've been doing Family Guy for 20 years, and there was only one instance, and I wouldn't even repeat the lines, but it was just so offensive and beyond what I thought was even sacrilegious. It was, I had an issue with it, and I let the producers know, and I couldn't be in that episode, and they said, fine. But I know what I've signed on for. Most everything that we do on that show is offensive, and actually in this day and age when everything's so precious and everybody's offended by everything, we need comedy. We need a really raunchy satire. It doesn't, apologize for anything. It's just, it's either you like it or you don't. So don't watch it. But yeah. So I know what I signed on for. But there was one thing. I raised 4 kids, and so I remember turning Family Guy off in our house a number of times because I grew up in a very religious family, and so, excuse me, that's the kind of stuff that bothers me at times, and I guess I hear my parents' voice in my head.
All right, next question, man.
Is there ever a role in a movie or TV show that you really wanted but unfortunately did not get?
Hundreds. But I can go back, go back in time, and there are all kinds of things. It's a numbers game. So certain things work out and certain things don't. And they see you a certain way in the industry, and a lot of times you have to get out and try to redefine and reinvent to continue to work, because they'll just look at you a certain way. And there are a lot of actors who, throughout time, and they've created ingenious characters, and you never see them work again because they're so identifiable with those characters. I did 9 episodes, though, of Seinfeld, and only because that show's in perpetual syndication and everybody was watching it. Just because Putty was sort of a character bigger than life, I was in danger of being typecast after 9 episodes of a show. So I had to try just not to play really stupid characters after that. Now, of course I did. I played a number of stupid characters. I try to mix it up with a smart one every now and then. But, yes, so many.
All right, next question. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I remember on ABC there was a short-lived live-action version of The Tick. Whatever happened to that?
They rebooted it.
That was on Fox, actually. Yeah, and we did 9 episodes, and Fox didn't really know what to do. They sort of fed us to the dogs. It was a little expensive for them. It was a single camera, half hour, and they weren't making those at the time. They had all kinds of questions, like, why do you guys have to wear costumes? And I explained that to them. I'm not lying. This really didn't happen. but it was so expensive. It was a costly show, and so they didn't want to invest in it. They had, greenlit the first season or half season, but then they decided we're not going to pay for the show. So they held us for a year. They were supposed to put us on Sunday nights after The Simpsons. They held us for a year and had to throw them up on the air somewhere. So they put us up on the air on Thursday night against the second year of Survivor. And they got big enough of the numbers that they were almost going to have to be forced to look at making new episodes, and decided, because when they decide to kill their puppies, they'll do it all the way. So they pulled us off Thursday night, and they put us on a death night, which was Saturday night at the time. Nobody was watching anything, just so they could have low numbers and say, yeah, we're not ordering any more of these shows. But that was sort of the part of the story. Yeah. I did too. It's great when you get to talk to a toilet, have a conversation.
All right, next very formal question.
Have you ever participated in or considered participating in an a cappella group or performance?
No. Interesting question. Never been asked that before. I didn't start singing though until the tender age of 48. Now I have a garage band. It's a Pearl Jam cover band. And some Vedder fans here. I sort of preach the gospel of Eddie Vedder. I've been a huge fan forever, and I'm not going to quit my day job, but I have so much fun doing that. And we've gone out and played in some bars and stuff. The second night we ever played, some friends of mine at a local rock station in Los Angeles said, you guys want to play at a USO show? And I said, no, I'm not really ready for prime time. And they said, come on, just do it. And so I talked to my guys, and so we went out there, and we performed on a battleship. And we played before Oingo Boingo and Vince Neil. So the second time ever outside of my backyard, I was opening for Vince Neil.
All right.
He was very sweet. I drank a lot of his vodka in his room. I needed some liquid courage.
Next question.
Hi. So, Eartha Kitt and you both voiced together in Emperor's New Groove. So, do you two are you still friends at all to this day?
Well, Eartha passed away some time ago, but we were, and she was lovely. We actually sat on a float together in the Hollywood Christmas parade with my daughter. So, but she was, Eartha was a legend, and that was a fun night because we got to hang out in the green room with her, and my daughter was probably 11 at the time, and I kept telling my daughter, it's very cool that you're getting to hang out with Mrs. Kidd. Someday you'll know.